When first EVs hit the market, their high price and limited range discouraged prospective buyers. However, we were promised that after a period of high prices and large batteries and luxury models, time will come for the cheap EVs for the people. The time is now, sort of. And the wind of change has arrived not from Germany, but from France. This is the Citroen eC3 and it's cheap-ish.
Réveillé et pas endormi, 2001 à qui je crie, à tous mes rêves qui sont vidés dans mon cerveau malade today. Malade today. Faut pas arrêter car c'est la vie, on sait jamais alors. Respire les problèmes qui nous mènent nus, y en a toujours d'autres, on continue.
In the fall of 2022, Citroen presented the OLE concept, a play on words, OLE, but also all E as in all electric. A year later, Citroen launched the fourth generation of the C3 city car. Perhaps it doesn't look as revolutionary as the OLE concept, but it's good enough for a budget Supermini. The new C3 is ever so slightly longer and wider than the previous generation. The wheelbase remained unchanged, but the height increased more than 10 centimeters, which is officially supposed to make it easier to get in and out, but in fact the traction battery had to fit somewhere. The new smart car platform was designed with different powertrains in mind. So 6 months after its debut, Citroen announced the C3 would also get an internal combustion engine variant. There was a choice of a modified 1.2 PureTech motor, which allegedly no longer suffers from the peeling cam belt issues, and a slightly more powerful mild hybrid based on the same engine.
Despite the electric powertrain, we don't get a frunk. And here it would have been useful since the eC3 is a city car that may often use the public Type 2 outlets, which, at least in Europe, don't always come with a cable. Instead, the eC3 is the first Citroen to feature the new oval logo. We also have the new large oval logo in the rear, and it's in a place that I find myself touching quite often when closing the tailgate. And it turns out that the logo moves ever so slightly. It seems I could easily pick it out with a pocket knife or some other innocuous tool.
Back in the day, compact cars boasted 310-liter boots. This is especially impressive on the C3 because its exterior dimensions are almost identical to the previous generation, and yet Citroen managed to add 10 liters to the boot capacity. Unfortunately, there is only space for a tire repair kit. There is no place to store the charging cable without losing cargo space. On the plus side, there is a shopping bag hook. The backrests split 40-60, but when the backrests are folded, there is a hump.
There is good legroom behind the driver's seat set to my driving position. I'm 175 centimeters tall. Some of the extra 10 centimeters in height also went into headroom, although the seat is mounted quite low and I have my thighs up in the air. There is a small tunnel running through the middle, but a tunnel nonetheless. There are USB-C ports and a 12-volt outlet. There are no air vents, there is no armrest, so if you have a bottle, the door pockets are your best bet. Also, there is none of that rear jacket hanger that replaced the grab handles back in the day. And yeah, but we get a mobile phone pocket here in the rear seat. Now, the seat itself is quite comfortable despite being mounted low. And these comfortable seats debuted in Citroens about 10 years ago in the C4 Cactus. Oh, and by the way, there are only Isofix anchor points in the rear, but not on the front passenger seat. So bear that in mind if you have kids. The front seats are also very comfortable, but the adjustment range for the steering wheel is so modest that I have to sit too close to the dashboard and bend my legs more than the correct position behind the wheels requires.
The cockpit is minimalist. Citroen decided to make a small display just under the windscreen instead of a traditional gauge cluster and a heads-up display. I don't expect advanced data presentation from a city car, so all in all, this should suit me. Unfortunately, whoever was given the task of simplifying the dashboard has most likely never driven a car. As a result, the outside temperature is displayed only along with the total mileage data. Other than that, there are 2 trip meters, range, and an eco gauge.
Why aren't the temperature and the range visible all the time? And where's the screen showing you the average energy consumption, even if Citroen wanted to go all retro, like in the days where anything except a speedometer was an option? This is the top trim.
Speaking of the top trim called Max, we get a display with navigation, multimedia, and very basic settings. I'd probably settle for the base U trim, where you have a phone cradle and you pair your phone with the car audio system, but when I tried using my Citroen app and failed to pair it with the car, I decided it's probably better to have a screen after all.
The Max trim gets sat-nav as standard. It features route planning with charging stops. An alternative is the Stellantis e-Routes app, but this is something you have to pay for, and if it works anything like the OEM sat-nav, it'll be easier to start using a sextant and let the stars guide you.
This is a city car, so Google will guide you to the nearest charging station. Meanwhile, route planning with charging within the OEM sat-nav doesn't seem to take into account the speed at which you travel on different types of roads. More on that later when we talk about range.
Hi, this is future Marek. I just handed over the Citroen eC3 and I found out that it doesn't have route guidance with charging, hence e-Routes app, which is a premium app. Why is there an app instead of route guidance within sat-nav? Because it's the same sat-nav regardless of the powertrain. So sextant and stars it is. Brilliant.
Beneath the screen are physical buttons to operate the AC. Max even gets automatic climate control. See, not everything needs to be operated via a touchscreen. Yay! Depending on the trim and options, we can also have a wireless charger. If you have drinks in your cup holders, access to the charger will be difficult. However, once you get there, at least the charger works, which is not always the case with Citroen and Peugeot cars. Next, we have the drive selector with a mysterious C button, about which more in a moment. And the electronic parking brake, which you better apply every time before opening the doors, otherwise the car will make noises even if you're in park. Then there's a cabbie with a USB-C port. The second one is on the passenger side of the dashboard. A small storage compartment under the armrest. The glove box is okay, the door pockets are spacious, but there is no molding to keep your bottle vertical.
And nothing says a budget car more in 2025 than a physical key to fire it up. Oh damn, I shouldn't have said fire and an electric car, should I? The Citroen eC3 has a bit of a Dacia Spring vibe about it. I know it's a different group, but the concept of a cheap city car is similar. Relatively small battery, high efficiency at low speeds, only basic equipment. For example, the winter package, which includes heated steering wheel and heated seats, is an option even on the top trim. The 3-phase 11 kilowatt onboard charger is also an option. It seems the French standard is the single-phase 7.4 kilowatts, which in some parts of Europe will trip circuit breakers. What's it like in your country?
However, the eC3 can charge up to 100 kilowatts DC. Citroen does the Chinese trick and provides a charging time from 20 to 80% state of charge, 26 minutes, rather than 10 to 80%. Peak charging power occurs around 20% state of charge and drops below 50 kilowatts around 75%. Citroen promises a 0 to 100 km/h time of 10.4 seconds. Not particularly relevant for a city car, but I checked and I got 10.9 seconds. It was cold, the car was on winter tires. Perhaps in the summer it would have been possible to shave 1 or 2 tenths of that time. Instead of claimed 7 seconds from 80 to 120 km per hour, I got 9, and here I don't particularly see any room for improvement. 30 to 60 in 2.4 seconds looks possible, as does 60 to 90 in 3.7 seconds.
So, it's all you need in the city. Also, the city range seems to be very good, although I have no idea what the real energy consumption is. I only know at speeds below 70 km per hour, the range disappears slower than kilometers traveled would suggest. However, above 80 km per hour, range disappears at an alarming rate. On a 30-kilometer route where I drove about 10 kilometers through the city and in traffic, and the remaining 20 on a ring road with speeds up to 120 km per hour, I lost more than 60 kilometers range. Yes, this is a city car, but Citroen's claimed energy consumption of less than 12 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers seems very optimistic indeed. Perhaps the car counted on recuperation, and this is a nice segue to the mysterious C button next to the gear selector. C stands not for what you think I think about whoever designed this car, it stands for comfort. And according to the car's manual, it reduces the amount of regenerative braking, maybe going downhill, a steep hill. You'll notice the difference. On a flat road, the difference is almost imperceptible.
If you drive this car outside the city, don't expect more than low 200-something kilometers range. Around the city, it should do the claimed 300-something, but pray for dense traffic. Which begs the question, wouldn't you be better off using public transport or a bicycle? In the press release, Citroen also boasts its magic carpet ride suspension with progressive hydraulic bump stops. This tech debuted on the C4 Cactus a while back. It worked well in the Cactus, as well as in later Citroen models. However, in the EC3, the suspension is so crashy I can't believe it has those trick shock absorbers. According to the specification, it does. Visibility isn't great, the A-pillars are under a certain angle and they are quite thick, so when approaching a junction always peek around them. Rear visibility is poor as well, but at least you get to admire the Paris Easter egg, or should I say, œuf de Pâques. The Citroen eC3 is easy to maneuver, and that's a plus. The brakes are quite effective, and this car weighs over 1400 kilograms. The max payload is almost 500 kilograms. The car can also tow up to 550 kilograms and take up to 61 kilograms on the hitch. The roof railings can take up to 75 kilograms.
At the time of recording, Citroen offers only the 44 kWh battery version with WLTP combined range of up to 326 kilometers. Later in 2025, smaller battery city variant will launch with a range of around 200 kilometers.
Price of the Citroen C3 started €15,990 for the petrol variant and €23,300 for the EV. The smaller battery version is supposed to start around €20,000. That's before any local EV incentives. This EC3 Max with options costs €28,720. Taking into account the prices of a larger BYD Atto 2 and a smaller Hyundai Inster, I think Citroen is tad too expensive for what it has to offer.
Small EVs for the city were supposed to be the answer to the increasingly expensive internal combustion engine cars. However, for the price of an EC3, I can either buy a pretty well-spec'd Toyota Yaris hybrid, or I can buy a petrol C3 and save myself $7,000. How long will it take to make up the difference in fuel and taxes around where you live? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.